Good evening and welcome back to Justin's In Your Corner Bible Teaching. I wanted to segue off of the previous episode, and let me just clarify that episode. It was titled, The Lord's Shield and Applying Wisdom for Our Protection. So I was talking about firearm training and making sure that you get the insurance to cover you in the event, God forbid, something happened. You got the legal and financial protection to help endure, whatever happens in the aftermath of that. But what I didn't actually talk about, which mostly applies, well, just the same really, with Psalms 144, verse 1, a Psalm of David, Blessed be the Lord, my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. So I didn't get a chance to talk about this in the last one because I was more geared about helping people and educating people about the importance of protection, not just, having a firearm as a last resort for your protection, but protection as far as, protecting your livelihood in the event something happened. So hopefully this lighting isn't too bad because it's shooting over here. Not sure which way your camera's looking. So what I have is I wanted to share my screen with... Okay, so let me just give it a little background. I was in men's gymnastics for most of my life, up until about, actually competing it from 8 years old to 14. And then as I was getting into high school, my freshman year at 14, financially the parents couldn't afford, right, the growing cost of being in that sport. So then my sister and my brother were cheering me on, like, hey, why don't you try out high school sports? And so gymnastics is an individual sport, and so I was like, I could do team sports, but and then it was kind of funny because maybe some of my Laguna Hills Hawk alumni will remember this. 97 class of 97. They were all my buddies from like junior high going into their freshman year. I remember the coaches, the football coaches, kept trying to call me, and I kept ignoring them because at that time, I don't know, I just wasn't interested. Again, gymnastics kind of conditions you to be like just an individual sport person. So I'd never played any, like I've played smear the, well, I'm not going to say this on the camera, smear the person, and all growing up when I was little, and stuff like that. But it wasn't real football. It wasn't real strategy, and it was just kind of free for all, like rugby kind of a thing. But even though rugby has more rules than that. So the football coaches were trying to reach me, but I had already that summer been doing the wrestling, the freestyle wrestling, not freestyle, but summer league there with Coach Jarmy and Coach Maddox at the time. And we had some other people there. An Armenian guy, he actually competed internationally, and I think he was like in his 60s at that time. And he would just be there with his, I think his nephews. I think that was either his, anyway, long story short, I get involved with high school wrestling, and it fit perfect. My sister and I and my brother, we would all, my brother would, get the high school, or not high school, would get the neighborhood kids, like, we're talking like when I was like 7 through say 10 years old, 11 years old, and get high school kids and junior high and, elementary school aged kids to kind of all get together whenever they could. And so my brother, he's 9 years older than myself, 7 years older than my sister. And so, he was already in high school and everything. And I just remember him and his buddies getting my best friend and I to fight each other with boxing gloves and stuff. And so it was, we cared about each other like brothers, and so we didn't want to hit each other, like why would I want to hurt my best friend, And, I've done plenty of boxing on the bag and stuff like that. But when it comes to like fighting a real person at that age, it was kind of like, yeah, gosh, I don't want to hurt you, that kind of thing. And then finally, my brother's buddy was like egging my best friend on to just throw just to go. And he finally threw the first punch and it hit me square in the, kind of like upper cheek and nose. And it rung my bell and I'm like, oh, I just got angry. And then it was on. So, that was like my first experience of actually fighting somebody, and it had to be my best friend. And then my sister, I think, my brother would do the same with my sister and have her try to fight people. And, and then we'd always, work out in the garage. We turned it into like a little boxing gym in there with a rhythm bag and driving the neighbors nuts. And then, but that's why I'm saying, like, that was always in the Hoff side of things in our family, just growing up, really just, street smarts, defending yourselves, protect others, have that honor to help people, and, that kind of thing. So, and my dad would always say, like, to be a knight and that kind of thing. So, yeah. Now, when I got in high school wrestling, that was so awesome because everything just flowed. The gymnastics gave me that, the flexibility, the muscle endurance, so I wouldn't fatigue for, because those matches are pretty long. And then it gave me that base strength, and, like your muscle fibers and everything, like how you're on the rings and the bars and everything in gymnastics. It's almost like when steel has tensile strength. I don't know if you guys have ever seen how strong, say, monkeys are, but they're just hanging around stuff all the time. And so they got really good tensile strength, basically, in their tendons. It's really strong. Well, that's kind of how, like, gymnasts are. And so when I got into high school wrestling, thank God I had that base, because it really helped me excel in that sport. And it was really good too, because it taught not just how to defeat somebody, but it also taught you how to, receive, defeat yourself. And, you take turns, winning or losing, and you come out with good sportsmanship out of it. Most of us would. And so I do miss that. And I just saw a post from one of my buddies, Soup, on Facebook, and he was talking. There was a little boy on there. He's like, I can't wait. Hopefully he sticks with it, that kind of thing. So, a shout out to Soup Garcia. Also, the main reason I got on here again, I wanted to highlight one of the other. So I've done, my brother and I, we've done MMA. My brother's done Thai boxing. Myself, just faked it to make it, but, kind of learned from my brother. My brother's shown me a lot, and but never really competed that. But yes, definitely sparred a lot in MMA type situations, boxing as well. I've sparred in boxing. And so those were all real good and everything. But, in wrestling, boxing, even jiu-jitsu, I took jiu-jitsu too. Your opponent is in the same sport. So if you're in jiu-jitsu, you're normally fighting against a jiu-jitsu person. Or if you're in wrestling, you're normally wrestling a wrestler. If you're in boxing, you're fighting a boxer. What I like about this other sport that I got involved with here in Michigan, and I'll share the website here, but Peter, he is one of the best instructors. I don't want to mess up or take away anything from him as far as misquoting, his, like his biography, his resume, and all the people and all the, very, I would say, I don't know if they were diplomats, but he's trained high people up in different governments, and I think he's helped with police departments. I think he's done many things like that. And at his facility, Black Mountain Defense, he trains little boys and girls all the way up through their teens, and then adults and older people. So you're really never too old or too young to get involved with this. And Peter's such a good instructor. He's very motivational. I need to get my butt back in there. It's been a long time. I really do. But I want to give Peter a shout out with Black Mountain Defense. Let's see here. And then what I'll do when I share the screen, wow, I just had a adolescent moment there with my voice. All right. I'm going to share the screen here. I didn't put my glasses on. All right. All right, you guys see that? So if I click here, home, it just takes me back to this home page. And then, oh good, it shows the drop-down menus. He also trains concealed carry combat, which segues off of our previous, my previous episode. Firearms training. He helps you get your, he does all the training for that, so you get certifications. And we got the Young and Boxing Club, Kids Jiu-Jitsu and Self-Defense, corporate and group training. So he does things for, companies. So that's pretty cool. Got all this information for us. He has his own firing range. So as you can see in this picture here on the left, that's the firing range, and he does a lot of the a mixed part of that, obviously with live guns, but it's all safe, where he's training not just the firearm training, but there's exercises they do to simulate hand-to-hand combat along with firearm training right on the field. So again, I know I'm not doing any justice. I'm not, but if you go to his website, it goes into a lot. So he does have all the props that he needs. So I remember when I took the classes, we're up against like a wall or a corner, and you're fighting off. He puts these scenarios up, and then they got pads and stuff, and so you're just going all out. Fighting this person, that person, up to 4 people or so, right in front of you. It does get a little crowded when it's like 4. I think he would do that more so with like 3 people in front of you, and they're taking turns, bopping you in the head and kneeing you, but they got the pads, and you don't. You got to learn how to protect yourself and guard, and So, but then, you pop out as soon as there's an opening, you pop them, and then so it's not just fun, but you're actually gaining the confidence to, like, if there was a real life scenario, it definitely, this type of training will help you with various situations that could go wrong. That's what he does, is he plays these different scenarios that could happen. Not just getting you physically strong and doing all the warm up and the exercises, but he does try to expand, the tools you have underneath your belt, as far as your capabilities. Another thing he does with these props, he'll have a prop, AR. He'll have a prop handgun. He'll have a prop knife, and do things like, how to get out of those situations, how to disarm people, and then take what they had and bang them over the head with it, or knock the heck out of them, whatever you got to do to get out of that hairy situation. And then, you can sign up. You can inquire the cost of it and everything. All right, let's see here. I'll put my glasses on because this squinting thing ain't working. About the team. So as you can see here, I don't know if we can zoom. Let me see if I can zoom. So right here, it's not spelt the traditional way, but Peter. So he's just darn good at what he does. And so I think you're in good hands if you yourself train, or your kids, or if you're, up there in age like myself and much older. There's classes for everybody. And then obviously trying to get into, say, firearm training, and not to be, the importance of that, as far as, for instance, when I was married, all of her cousins, guy cousins, they're very familiar with firearms. They go hunting and things of that nature. But holy cow, she was completely afraid of firearms, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it, because it's an inanimate object. It's not going to just up and fire itself. And so she was just always scared of guns, and so I finally encouraged her to, hey, let's go to the range with your cousins if that makes you feel more comfortable. And so they cheered her on, I cheered her on, and she finally, after that first round that she shot off, she's like, oh, it's not that bad. And I just remember that. And so all it takes really is to get started. If that's something you're uncertain about, I think, I come from a lot of training in the business world, in gymnastics and wrestling, and training that way, in onboarding people, new hires. And so a lot of times what prevents people from moving forward into starting something new that they've never done before, because it's the unknown, right, it's fear. That's what Satan does in our minds, is like, oh, you've never done that before, and you could always do something else. You're always thinking of excuses. I've been there, right, in my mind. So what I'd like to encourage everybody to do is realize, once you get started and you start doing the training, it might be tough at first. Like anything, it stretches you. It's physically, you've never done something before like that. You'll be sore. But then once you commit to it and you keep doing it, you'll slowly, gradually, your learning curve will go like this. And once your learning curve goes like this, now that confidence up here whereas it wasn't down here before. Now your confidence up here starts to replace anxiety, the previous anxiety and fear that you may have had. So I just want to encourage everybody to do that. Shout out to Peter, and I definitely want. Sorry, I got to get ready for work. That was. I know you guys know what that music was. So yeah, we got other team members on here. Actually, I haven't met this gentleman, Cameron Summers. I've never met him yet, because again, I haven't been in the gym in a while. So it'll be good to get back. I'm going to reach out to him. And then right here, Laura Marcoux, it's, again, there's no picture here. And then we got Simon, and then Peter. So, yeah. So they got a good team, very well-rounded. Here, I'll just click on pricing, see if he even shows the pricing, because sometimes people don't show pricing. All right, so I believe let's do this. Open, okay. So it's a whole package. It does not just the combat training, right? But open classes, but also concealed carry combat training, exclusive weapons defense, grappling, and combative instructions. Back when I was doing it, it was like $100 a month. And then obviously, if you got like a bunch of kids or family members, 2 adults, 2 children, this is the most cost-effective thing to do, is a $350. But yeah, so these are monthly dues. But my goodness, Peter does a fantastic job over there at Black Mountain Defense and his whole team. So I did want to just give a shout out to them. Again, guys, I don't get paid for any of this stuff. I just, out of my own heart, I know the value he brings to help with, training, all around training. And it'll definitely, so when you do get this type of training, this Krav Maga training, you could definitely use the firearm as a last resort. Like you'll have the confidence where, yeah, you'll have a firearm on you, but your mind's not even thinking of using it, because you could first use your voice, talk people down. I'll share Christ with people to talk people down, not in a passivity way, but in a that's how you confront issues. Like rebuking the enemy, that kind of thing, in the authority of Christ's name. But so you first try to talk people down. If it still escalates, you got your hands and your legs and your knees and everything there at your disposal after receiving this type of training. And it's just automatic. You can protect yourself and protect others, even defend off a bunch of people at the same time. And he teaches you how to be aware and making sure there's no a buddy behind you with something to knock you over the head. Like he teaches you all of these things in the class. So out of all the sports that I've ever done, or training in this type of realm, I really love wrestling. I really love jiu-jitsu and boxing. But I would say out of all of them, Krav Maga here, it's definitely, it stands out. In my mind, it does. I think it's the most versatile and more realistic thing that will happen out in the real world. But again, he teaches the boxing and the jiu-jitsu and that as well. So it's very well-rounded. I know you guys will like it. Okay, so I'll let you all go. I got to get ready for work. But I hope this was helpful. And let's see. I'm going to remove. And I want to say goodbye to everybody. Hope this has been helpful. Reach out to Peter with Black Mountain Defense. And I'll put the link. I didn't put his link, but just look up blackmountaindefense.com. And it has that little logo with the mountain. All right. Well, God bless. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Did it end? No, it didn't. I thought I ended.